Welcome to Introduction to HTML and Introduction to Web Development as well. So we are going to create a folder which we're going to use to hold every single file or folders we're going to be dealing with. In my own case, I already have a folder created and I am going to open it. So I am going to click on File, then Open Folder, and I'm going to select this folder called Learn HTML, which is my folder. Now, next thing we're going to do is to create an actual HTML file. And how do we do that? We do that by right clicking here, and of course you have other options to go about it. You could use this option here, or you simply come to File, New File. But I'm going to stick with this empty space here, and I'm simply going to do right click, New File, and I'll call it index.html. So after this, we have to create a boilerplate. A boilerplate is simply the basic elements and setup you need to start writing your HTML document. And you can load that up using a shortcut by doing Shift 1, then you press Enter, and it loads that for you. So here are elements. HTML is an element, heading is an element, and body is an element. A simple way to understand what elements are and how to use them is to think of them as this. A regular HTML document is going to have different kinds of information or data: images, videos, paragraphs, headings, tables, and so on. Think about it this way. Anything you need to achieve on a HTML document has an element that can achieve that. So if you wish to write a form, there is an element that will make you a form. So now, for simplicity and a guide, what we're going to do is to make a list of, I'm going to write the different things we're going to work out in this lesson. So I'm going to put them up in comments. So how do you write a comment? You simply do Control/. So a comment is a code that will not be executed among all the codes you write. So among all the codes you've written, your comment will not be executed. It's simply there for your reference purpose. So we're going to write heading. Then we're going to definitely write paragraphs. And so let's include an image. We're going to write an image. And we're going to do tables. And we're going to make a form. And in between paragraphs, we're going to do some other things. And we might as well include a data list. Data list. Okay, great. So let's jump into this. So in HTML, there are different levels of heading. So we have heading 1 all the way to heading 6. Heading 1 has the most level of emphasis or has the highest level of hierarchy. And heading 6 has the least. So how do we write heading? I'm going to be using shortcut, which makes it fast for you to write your code. So I will simply write H1, and it shows me that there's an image abbreviation for that, and I'll simply hit the Enter key. So I'm going to say that learning HTML as a complete beginner. Great. Alright, so I have written a H1. What about a paragraph? Just as simple as that. All you need to do is write a P, and you're going to say something that this is going to be a great experience. Awesome. Now, by the way, on VS Code, there is a shortcut that could help you load up dummy data or dummy text. So how do you do that? We are going to do that by using the same image abbreviation. So I'm going to write a paragraph once again. So I write a P there, and to load dummy text, all you have to do is write lorem, and if I press enter, it loads dummy data for me. Now, if you don't want this horizontal scroll, you could just wrap the text. How do you wrap the text? You could do Alt Z, that's going to help you wrap the text. And if you want to undo that or bring it back on a single line format, you do Alt-C once again. So I like the broken version, so I'm going to keep that. So far, if you want to take a look at what you have done on your browser, you simply just have to come to this file and you are going to right click and copy path. And now you go to your favorite browser and you paste that and hit enter. And there we go. So this is what we have done so far. Now, let's look at the next thing we need to do. So next thing we need to do, if you don't want this panel, you simply just have to click on these ones and it hides. If you want it back, you click once again and it shows up. All right, so let's load an image. So once again, whatever you want to do, there's an element that can do that for you. So we're going to call on the image element. All I have to do is write img, which is the name of the element. Then I press enter. But it's going to do a lot of autocomplete, and as a beginner, you don't need so much of autocomplete. So maybe I should try this the hard way. All right. So all I have to do is to do angle bracket img, and I am going to close it like this because it really doesn't have a closing tag. So next thing I'm going to do is to specify the source. Let's start with the source. So now if you have images loaded inside your directory, in my case I have images loaded within my parent folder. If you do it like that, it's going to be a lot easier for you. So all you have to do is to call the image directory just within the folder inside the source attribute. So how do I do that? So I am going to come here and say that images, you see, it loads that folder for me. That's the beauty of VS Code. I press enter and it's going to load the images that are in there. Okay, so I can now close this. So this is referred to as an attribute. An attribute usually would provide more information about an element. So in this case, this attribute called source is pointing to the place where I have my image loaded. All right. So if I save that and refresh my browser, I'm going to have the image showing up right there. Now the image is quite big. I can actually control it. So how do I control the size? So I'm going to come back to my code and I'm going to add additional attribute. I'll add it at the top. I want to add height attribute. Let's just say that I wanted a smaller height of maybe 180 pixels. So I save that and refresh this. Now I have a height of 180 pixels. Now I could also do this for the width. I could remove this and say that I want the width to be 50% of the viewport of my browser. So if I save that and refresh, it's going to take halfway of my browser. And mind you, if I squeeze this around, it's also going to become halfway. All right. So, but I think I want to keep the just do only height, and I'm going to set the height to maybe 220 pixels. Now refresh that right here, and I have 220 pixels. Okay, now for good practice, anytime you add an image, you need to add an alternate text. Now this could be useful when people who are visually impaired are consuming your web page. So whatever text you add here could be read out to people who are visually impaired, and this is something that search engines value a lot. So I could say that this is a landscape. Why don't we say beautiful landscape? Great. So we have successfully added an image. Okay, what about a table? Now, let's say that I want to make a table that has to do with regional sales of a particular company. So I will start by writing the table element, which simply is table. Now I could add a caption, and this is just as it sounds, caption for the table, what the table is about. Regional sales. All right. Now, next thing we're going to do here is to begin to create the table head. Table head is much like a column. It is similar to columns. All right. So I'm going to say T head. Okay. And inside T head, I'm going to have one row, one table row. So I'm going to say TR. Now, how many do I want? So I'm going to have, um, let's say, let's make table data. Let's have Lagos. Let's make another one within this table row. Table data again. Let's have Nairobi. Let's have again. Let's have Casablanca. Let's have just one more. Um, let's have Cairo. All right, great. So now next thing we have to do is to make table body. So table body is where we're going to have the actual data reside in. So here I'm going to say T body. And now to make to enter data for a row, and mind you, we could actually say that these are different sales records for different products. And how do we go about this? So what I'm going to do here is this. I am going to say that this is for coffee, right? Okay. And now there's a mistake there. So let's undo that. So table row is supposed to have table data. So we're going to say TD inside table row. Okay, so we are going to have coffee. Okay. All right. And we're then going to say that in Lagos, they sold 450 tons of that. Let's just say, right? Then we're going to do for Nairobi 120 tons. Let's do again. For Casablanca, it's going to be much like 380 tons. And finally, for Cairo, it's going to be 400 tons. Now you're going to notice something. So I'm going to save this and refresh our browser. And now we have regional sales as the caption. And then we have Lagos, Nairobi, Casablanca, and Cairo. But then you're noticing something here. Coffee is sitting exactly under Lagos, and we don't want that. 450 tons is supposed to be sitting under Lagos and 120 tons under Nairobi. We could correct that. If you notice, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 table data right here, and over here we have just 4 table data. So what we could do is to add an empty table data at the very beginning here, save that and refresh. And now this coffee is really not sitting under anything, but now we have 450 tons under Lagos and so on. So what I could do is to copy this to make another row and say that the next sales is for what could we be selling? Let's say iron ore. All right. So let's say that this is 1 and 2 and 2 and 5, or let's say 5. Now I refresh that and you see, so we have coffee, iron ore. So iron ore sold 150 tons in Lagos, 220 tons in Nairobi, and so on. So that is for table data or table. So now let's look into forms. So you can make different kinds of form in HTML. You could make a form that captures color. You could make a form that captures date, time, email addresses, and so on. So, but the first step you have to take is to write the form element. And we really don't need this action for now, but when you get to web development, that is, you begin to do some more serious stuff in web development, you're gonna need the action. So now here we are going to write a label. A label is just much like something that explains what that input field is meant for, the input field next to it. And also we may not need the for, we may not need it. So let's ask somebody for their email address. And down there, we're going to write an input, and the input is going to ask for email instead of text. We could add a placeholder, but just before we add a placeholder, let's take a look at what this looks like. So right here we have email. Okay. So now if we want something to give the user a hint about what we want him to type, we could add a placeholder right there. So we could say example at gmail.com, and we save that, refresh again, and there we go, example at gmail.com. So that is that. So before I write the next one, I could add here a break. Perhaps I could add two of that. I think you need to see why I'm trying to add a break. So all I have to do is to write another label, and this is going to be for your name, first name, and first name has to be test. So I'm going to write input, and you could do this colon test, and it's going to load input with a type of text. All right, we also don't need the name and ID at this stage in web development, and I'm going to add a placeholder once again that says John. I save this and I refresh. There we go. So I would like this first name to come to the next line. That was why I needed to enter a break tag right over there. So I save and it comes down. If I still want just a little more, I could add another break tag. Now I refresh, it gives me more space. All right, so let's do something to capture date. So I could do here input, and I do colon date. Hit enter, and there we go. So date would not need a placeholder, so all we have to do is to refresh, and now we have date. So you can select date. You could go behind this year by clicking that, and now when you scroll, you can go all the way back 2013 and select month and so on. Okay, great. So let's try one more type of input field. Let's try writing color selection. So we're going to say input, and this time we are going to do color, and there we go. So this is going to allow you to select color. So I refresh, and now on default it is on black, and you can choose your color, and there you go. Great. So now finally let's try a data list. So a data list is much like a select kind of element where you could select something, but you have the option of typing it for it to show up. All right, so what we're going to do is we'll have to start with a label, just to say that select state. Why don't we say select destination? All right, so next thing we're going to do is to write an input. And by the way, this time I'm going to need the for thing, the for attribute. So I'm going to say destination. So I just choose whatever name I write inside the for. It really doesn't matter. I could simply use dest. All right, it really doesn't matter. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do here, I think I should add a break tag. Okay, then down here I'm now going to have an input, but there's something that's going to be different with this input. It's going to be of the type of list, but for now I'm simply going to just make an input. All right, input, but the type I would have to remove. but instead I'm going to say list. And that list, I'm going to point it once again to something that I will use to tie it to this input. So I'm going to say dst dash choice. Okay. Now, next thing I'm going to do is to add an ID here, and that ID is going to refer to this form. So I'm going to say dst. Now, after that, I'm going to say that I want to write the data list itself. So here, I'm going to write data list. And by the way, I'll probably need another break tag here just to make sure that they don't run along themselves. So over here, I'm now going to have an ID, and that ID is going to be pointing to this um, it's going to be pointing to this ID here that I entered here. That's what it's going to be pointing to. So I'm going to say dest dash choice. Okay. Then now I'm going to begin to enter my options. So I'm going to say option, and the option needs to have a value. Okay. So I'm going to say value. Oh, value is already there. So, and I would say that this one is New York. I'm going to add another one, and I'm going to say New Jersey. Start spelling. And I'm going to have another one. Let's say Lagos, and I'm going to enter another one still. Let's say Los Angeles. Okay, great. So I'm going to refresh these, and here where I have, I think I need to squeeze this up. Is that fine for you? So where we have select destination, so once I click, it shows me all the available options. Mind you, when I start writing N, it's going to start limiting it to the ones that have N. So NE, you see, it keeps narrowing it down. That is what data list does. All right, thank you.